Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति 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 हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः सुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्कपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थितदद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः ओम Namaste once again, everyone.
Namaskaram, Guruji.
Karam Karmajam Buddhi Yuktahi Phalam Tyaktva Manishinaha Janma Bandha Vinirmuktaha Padam Gacchantya So, in the context of this above sloka, we were discussing in the last class about emotional growth, the internal growth of a karma yogi, where he gives up ahankara and also mamakara. The ego is given up in the sense it is diluted to a very large extent. And also mamakara, this is mine, this is my brother, this is my sister, this is my house, that my business is also given up. And in the process, the karma yogi achieves intellectual maturity, where he considers the entire world as his family. And I also actually told you a very beautiful line. It's a sloka basically. Ayam nijaha paro veti ganana laguchetasa. Laguchetasa means people with narrow mind. Udara charitanam, people with broad mind, who have intellectual maturity. To vasudaiva kutumpakam. They consider the entire world as their own family. So an emotionally mature mind is what karma yoga sadhana takes us to. And this universal, what does this emotional growth signify? The emotional growth signifies universal love. Of course, we must attain the maximum intellectual growth also, which is not that difficult as compared to attaining emotional growth. And once we have this intellectual growth and we reach the peak of intellectual growth, the fundamental questions which trouble all the intellectually thinking people. Who am I? What is this world? Is there a God? Who is that God? And as I told towards the end of the last class, there is one thing which baffles everybody who have the, I would call it, the leisure to think about these things. There are crores of people who don't have even the leisure to think about it. Don't have the intellectual capability to even think about these questions. And this is what is the relation? Who am I? Who is God? And what is this world? These are the three questions. And an overriding question is, what is the relationship between all these three? So these are the three basic intellectual questions which will rise in the mind of every human being at some stage or the other. And this curiosity, unless it is satisfied, unless I discover the answers to this question, I cannot attain that maximum intellectual growth, or you can call it spiritual growth also. Whenever we are talking about emotional growth and intellectual growth, what we are essentially calling it in one name, if you have to get, is spiritual growth. And therefore, a karma yogi has not only to grow physically, where physical growth is also equally important, and a karma yogi needs to give equal, if not more, attention to his physics, his body, his health. But at the same time, he also needs to grow emotionally. So, spiritual growth, intellectual growth, emotional growth, all these things are all condensed in one word, Manishinaha Bhutva. Manishi here means Jnani. The word Manisha means Atma Jnana. Adi Shankara has wrote a wonderful work, a very, very precise, concise work called Manisha Panchakam. There are 5 verses only in that text. Manisha Panchakam. That's why Panchakam means 5. So Manisha means Jnanam, Atma Jnana. And a Manishi means a Jnani. So one should attain this knowledge also, apart from once who has completed the Karma Yoga sadhana, needs to attain this knowledge, which is called Jnana Yoga. And when that happens, this spiritual seeker reaches the final stage. Janma bandha vinirmukta hai. He said in this sloka. That's the final stage. So as a result of this knowledge, this karma yogi, this spiritual seeker, is freed from all shackles of samsara, all shackles of rebirth, what we can call. Because these shackles, is presented in the Shastras in different ways. In the first chapter, as we saw, this shackle or this bandha, this bondage, was presented as Ragaha, Shokaha, and Moha. I hope you all remember that, right? Ragaha, attachment. Shokaha means anxiety or grief, which leads to Moha, which is conflict arising out of delusion. So at that stage, the stage where Arjuna was, in the first chapter, we can say that was a shackle. That was a bondage. And when we actually come to the Upanishads or we come to Bhagavad Gita, the very same shackle in philosophical language is described as what? Janma Maranam. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam, Punarapi Janani, Jatare Shayanam. This transmigration, repeated births and deaths, or mortality can be called a shackle. And thus, through this process, a karma yogi becomes a jnana yogi, becomes a jnani, and then becomes mukta. Now, question is, if he becomes a mukta, how long will he enjoy that freedom, that liberation? Shastra says, as long as he is alive, he will enjoy that freedom. It is only Advaita Vedanta which talks about freedom while living in this life itself. No other philosophy talks about freedom while living this life. They all say all the liberation, freedom we are talking about is all after death. What happens after death? Is there any proof? Has anybody seen anything? All conjectures. Some Purana, somewhere here, there and all, somebody has said something. This will happen, so everybody believes it. That is what makes Advaita Vedanta a seeking, not a fate. You don't need to believe anything. You just will, whatever is being taught to you, once you have gained the knowledge of that, assimilated that knowledge, you can experience that Ananda. If somebody says it is only after your death you can experience Ananda, what is the use of such an Ananda? Whether it is there or not, who knows? It is some other religions also say the same thing, rather. Wait till your death. Because after death, nobody is going to question any Acharya. You won't come back to question, oh, you promised all these things. Nothing happened. Like that, you will never be able to do that. But once you understand the implication of what the Advaita Vedanta, Advaita Siddhanta teaching is, that the freedom that we enjoy, the Ananda that comes out of that freedom is experienced as long as this body, mind, sense complex is alive. Just imagine what a beautiful life it will be. I will continue to be in this world, and the world will also continue to be the same. Earlier, I was afflicted by all that was happening around me. But now, with the knowledge I have gained, with the jnanam I have gained, I am not afflicted by any events, any type of events which happen, which, I come across in my life. Krishna talks about that person, gives a name, Sthita Prajnaha. We'll see that in the next few slokas. He explains to Arjuna who is a Sthita Prajna. So the ups and downs in life do not affect him. And Shastra uses a very nice term. In fact, Adi Shankara uses this nice term. This such a person is called a Jivan Mukti, the one who is liberated while living. So the inner freedom, the mental freedom while living, what happens? The mind becomes light. There is no burden in the mind. You just become a sakshi, a witness to everything going on around you. Just like watching a movie or a drama. You are just witnessing it, you are not part of it. That is the freedom and that is the liberation Shastra talks about as Jivan Mukti. Because when there is no peace of mind, the mind itself becomes a burden. Ashantasya mano bharaha. In fact, people have the courage to face everything in life, except one thing, when our own mind becomes a burden. If somebody else is a burden to us, we can get away from him or her, isn't it? If any place that we live is a burden, we can move to another place. If anything else in the world is a bharam for us, we can get rid of that. Nowadays, people get rid of everything, parents, spouses, even children. But what can you do if your own mind is a burden to you? How can you get rid of your mind? Well, wherever you go, the mind will also come. The burdened mind will also come. You may go to Kailash Mansarovar or you may go to Badrinath, whatever it is. You cannot leave your mind behind. It will come along with you. That will be the greatest tragedy, when my own mind becomes my enemy. It burdens me. What I would say, tortures me. But when the mind becomes light, when the mind reaches that emotional maturity stage, Jivan Mukti is that state. And then what happens? The mind becomes a beautiful instrument. In fact, that is what it is, which is the gift of Lord. And that mind enjoys love, compassion, relaxation, ananda. I mean, ananda is a word which we will find it very difficult to find an English equivalent, exact English equivalent. Maximum, many people use the word bliss for ananda. Pujya Swamiji says bliss is again falls far short of what ananda is, because bliss again falls under the definition of an experience, whereas ananda is not experience. Ananda is a state in which you revel. Very difficult for us to define ananda. Taittiriya Upanishad tries to define what this ananda is. I have mentioned it in one of the earlier classes. I don't want to repeat it now. And so this Jivan Mukti that he enjoys, as long as the Prarabdha Karma allows. Prarabdha Karma allows means what? Till his body, mind, sense complex is alive. And once that karma is exhausted, anamayam padam gachanti. These people merge into the Lord as though merged. There is no real merger. You must understand that also. Because by merger, what we imply is that the difference between himself and the Lord, which he has been, he has been understanding, that difference vanishes. He understands that I am that Brahman. I am that Ishvara. There is no difference between myself and Ishvara. With that understanding, when he leaves this body, what happens? That person acquires or gains Ishvara Aikyam, which is called Videha Mukti. So here, the padam which Krishna mentions in the sloka means the ultimate goal. Paramam padam, which is Brahman or Ishvara, and which is Anamayam. Anamayam means free from all kinds of conflicts, free from all kinds of agony, free from all kinds of mental disturbance. Therefore, this is a very beautiful and comprehensive verse. It includes everything, this verse, starting from Karma Yoga, talks about Jnana Yoga, then to Jivan Mukti and to Videha Mukti. The entire essence of Vedanta encapsulated in a small sloka. Beautiful sloka. Of course, this is just sort of a headline, as they call it. Krishna himself will talk about the details later. Because we must remember that when we started, I told that the second chapter is a summary of the entire Gita. Every idea mentioned in the second chapter, Bhagawad himself is going to elaborate in the third, fourth, up to 17th chapter. 18th chapter, he will again summarize the whole thing. So the whole Bhagavad Gita is what? It is unfolding of the second chapter, what the message of the second chapter is. And of course, as I said, 18th chapter, he will condense the entire knowledge that he has dealt with in these 3rd to 17 chapters. Entire Gita he will condense. And in the next and the following verse, Bhagavan Krishna elaborates on the spiritual growth, which he talked about in this particular verse. Excuse me. Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyatita rishyati tada gantasi nirvedam srotavyasya srutasya cha. The Anvaya of the sloka is Yada te buddhihi vyatita rishyati moha kalilam tada gantasi nirvedam srotavyasya srutasya cha. The word meanings are Yada, when, te buddhihi, your intellect, vyatita rishyati, goes beyond, moha kalilam, the mist of delusion, tada, then, gantasi, you will attain, you will reach, nirvedam, dispassion, shrotavyasya, towards what is yet to be heard, srutasya cha, and what is already heard. Again, Bhagavan talks about the journey of a karma yogi when he has done karma yoga and when he has reached jnana yoga stage, when he has gained that knowledge, what will be his state? He says, when your intellect goes beyond the mist of delusion, then you will attain dispassion towards what is yet to be heard and what is already heard. What does this mean? So as I told you, these two verses, 52 and 53, are elaboration of the previous verse. It's just sort of, the stages which were talked about earlier are again presented here. So what does Karma Yoga do? How will it take one to Jnana Yoga, and how Jnana Yoga will liberate a person? That is being answered here. It's a two-stage process. The first half, Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga, one jump. Then second jump, Jnana Yoga to Moksha. So two jumps are there. In this sloka, the first jump is given. And in the next sloka, we will see the second jump. So let us see what does the Karma Yoga do. Krishna says, Buddhihi moha kalilam vyatita rishyati. Because delusion is our whole problem of samsara. Bondage, as we just saw in the first chapter, as I mentioned. Raga, Shoka, Moha. Moha, delusion. Cause is Shoka. Cause of Shoka is Raga, desires. So this creates an intellectual confusion, but Karma Yoga, Bhagavan says, helps one spiritual seeker to cross over this confusion. The intellect will get a clarity of thinking. The intellect will be able to know the priorities of life. Because before that, moksha was only a vague concept, with different people giving different definitions of moksha. Right from Gajendra Moksha story in Narayaniyam. Of course, Narayaniyam, Gajendra Moksha story comes in Bhagavatam. That is, of course, adopted in Narayaniyam. So many different concepts of moksha are there. Now, people talk about 4 parts to moksha. All these confusions, everything, this karma yoga makes creates the purity of the mind, gives clarity of thinking to the intellect, and finally, the person is able to understand, to prioritize, able to know what the priorities of life are. Because even among people who understand a bit about moksha, in fact, there is a very, very common thinking that all this moksha business is all only meant for sannyasis. That's only goal for sannyasis. And who are these sannyasis? These sannyasis are those who are good for nothing people, who have failed in all other fields. They are jobless people, unsuccessful in the examination. No one married them. They were failures. If they are young, they try to do something and they failed. If they are old, the children rejected them, threw them away. So they took the sannyasa, and then they are talk about moksha and things like that. And this is the thinking of many people, in fact. The moment you talk about Atma, Jnanam, Moksha and all, people run away. In fact, some of my students in Nana Nani, a couple of them are listening to this now also probably. When I was teaching Kathopanishad in Nana Nani, one lady came and she told me that I would like to join your class. I said, it's quite late. I mean, I've already done introduction and all that. She said, doesn't matter. Let me see what it is. I know nothing. So I said, okay, come and sit in the class and listen. No problem. So 1 or 2 classes she came and then she stopped coming. I also didn't bother. I said, okay, fine. I mean, normally those who come very interested, I take special care. But those who come for curiosity's sake, I said, okay, I mean, you can sit or you can leave. Then apparently later on somebody told me that this lady is going around telling people, oh, I went to that class, he's talking about Atma or something and all that. I got very scared. So I stopped going there. Now, this is the idea many people have. Whenever you talk about Atma, what comes in their mind is spirit, ghost, all those kind of things, they come in their mind, they are scared about it. They don't even understand the word Atma means the self, I. That's a Sanskrit word for I. What to do? And then there are other people also who feel that all this moksha and all is only for retired people. I mean, I'm able to work and earn lot of money. My priority is only making more and more and more and more money. And then after I made lot of money, I will retire and then think about moksha and all that. Or there are others who think that moksha means going to some forest, putting on some, this kashayam, growing a long bird. For them, that is moksha. And majority of the people are such people who don't have any understanding of moksha. Moksha simply means inner maturity, intellectual maturity, emotional maturity. That's all. But to understand this, it takes a lot of time. And therefore, Krishna says that the buddhi will get over the confusions regarding the priorities of life, confusions regarding the value of moksha. The confusion is whether arthakama is the ultimate goal or dharma moksha is the ultimate goal. And if both of them are important, what should be given more importance? And this clarity, once one gave, that is called viveka. And confusion regarding this is what is called moha. And here, that mental confusion is called kalilam. Kalilam literally means dirt or impurities. So, moha kalilam means, we can say, intellectual impurity regarding the course of life, regarding the priorities of life. The more a person becomes a karma yogi, the more a person leads a religious life, he crosses over this confusion of the intellect and he understands what exactly all these things are about. And then what happens? Tada gantasi nirvedam. When this conflict, this confusions, this moha, this delusion goes away, when this nitya anitya vastu viveka comes, what is permanent, what is impermanent, that understanding, that discrimination comes, then the natural consequence is what? Vairagyam or dispassion. Here the word nirvedam means dispassion. Gantasi nirvedam. You will attain dispassion, says Bhagavan Krishna to Arjuna. Therefore, this karma yogi will develop dispassion towards what? Srotavyasya srutasya cha. Srotavya and srutasya, they refer to all external dependences. All external dependences are srotavyam. Those external factors are sources of security, which are mentioned in the Purva Bhaga of the Vedas, the ritualistic portion of the Vedas. The ritualistic portion talks so much about external security. You do this ritual, you can get a nice house. You do this ritual, you can go to Swargaloka. You do this ritual, you will get nice children. You do this ritual or go to this temple or do this, do that, you will get a nice job. All these are promised in the Purva Bhaga. But what does that mean? All these are all coming under external support systems for we to be happy. And because we are, even with knowledge of Vedic mantras, understanding of the Purva Bhaga, the purpose of Purva Bhaga, one tends to get lost in that itself and comes to believe that all that is told in the Purva Bhaga is enough for me to be happy. I will keep on doing all the rituals. One ritual will give me this, one ritual will give me that. I will remain happy. All my desires, all my kamas, all my artha kama purushartha will be fulfilled. What else I want in life? The thinking comes, and that is what is the moha, delusion, confusion. Of course, we must not belittle this, because initial stages of life, this external support is very important. Artha kama is very important. They are good initial. But as a person gains more and more experience, he fulfills his artha kama purusharthas. He must also know how much security I need for my present needs, how much wealth I need for my present needs. What desires, I mean, again, desires, we talked about binding, non-binding desires, we talk about. How should I react when my desires are not fulfilled? So a person, when he becomes more and more mature, he understands the risks behind running behind Artha Kama Purushartha. We don't know when what desire is going to be not fulfilled, and which will actually drown us in grief. It's like the coalition governments in India. Nobody knows when who will pull the carpet. So through this karma yoga practice, the human mind becomes more and more mature and starts understanding that the external things are always unpredictable, and therefore there is a constant fear. A karma yogi is one who understands external dependence means fear. Total fearlessness can come only when I learn to depend upon my own self, not on any external factor. And if at all you want to have an external dependence, there is only one entity, that is Bhagawad. Therefore, what happens? What is the process a karma yogi undergoes? To start with, he learns to switch over his dependence from the world to God, and finally from God to oneself. And we are not talking here about physical dependence. Physical dependence one cannot avoid to a large extent. I have to depend upon somebody to give me food. I have to depend upon electricity and internet working to conduct this class. Physical dependence is not that risky. Whereas emotional dependence, psychological dependence is very risky. This a karma yogi realizes, and therefore he does not want to hold on to that. That is called nirvedam, dispassion towards external traps, emotional traps. And again, we must understand what dispassion is. We don't mean dispassion means hatred or because the word vairagyam is a very misunderstood word also in our society. Vairagyam, many people equate it to hatred, dislike. That is not what vairagyam means. Vairagyam means dispassion, emotional independence from external dependencies. So, a person who has developed this dispassion by understanding the reality around him, he will continue to shower love, he will continue to help others. Only is he will not want to seek help from others for his emotional needs. It is not hatred, but it is learning to be independent, and not only towards things which are srotavyam, that is mentioned in the scriptures, srutasya cha, and also the external dependencies which are already known to us. In short, towards all known and unknown dependencies, external dependencies, a karma yogi develops dispassion, and he wants to become emotionally, intellectually independent. And this is the benefit of a religious life. And this is the first stage. As I mentioned, karma yoga to jnana yoga through dispassion route. Now, what is the second stage? Bhagavan talks about in the next sloka. Shruti vipratipanna yada stasyati nischala samadhavachala buddhihi tadha yogamavapsyasi. Anvaya is yada te buddhihi shruti vipratipanna achala nischala samadhav stasyati tada yogam avapsyasi. Yada, when, te buddhihi, your intellect, shruti vipratipanna, which is now confused or distracted by listening to various means and ends mentioned in the Shruti, in the Vedas. Achala, firmly, without doubt. Nischala, steady, without error. Sthasyati, abides or is established in. Samadhav, in the Atma, in the self. Tada, then avapsyasi, you will attain yogam, yoga, self-knowledge. So the words here, we have to understand these words very carefully. Word like samadhi, word like what is the meaning of yogam and all that. That is not the usual meaning that we understand these words. Excuse me. Sorry. So, when your intellect, which is now confused by listening to all these Shruti Vakyas and mantras and rituals and things like that and all, abides or becomes established in later in the Atma, in the self, without doubt and without error, then you will attain yoga, self-knowledge. That is what Bhagavan is telling. See, through karma yoga, Bhagavan has brought Arjuna to the topic of, again, Atma Jnana. So therefore, when a person gets more and more interested in this independence or self-dependence, shifts over from dependence on others to dependence on self for one's emotional needs, the scriptures themselves come and say, really speaking, you need not depend on any external factors. You have got within your own self an eternal source of security, an eternal source of fullness, an eternal source of ananda. And that source is within you yourself. You don't need to go around chasing for that. What is required is for you to tap that source. You have a big piece of land and there is lot of groundwater. You don't know that. And you go and seek, municipal water or, and then that water will come for 2 hours a day and things like that. You are suffering for lack of water. All that is required is for you to dig a bore well in your own property instead of relying on corporation water, tank water, etc. for your needs. And that's an endless source. It will go on coming. It will never stop. As long as you keep on digging and drawing that water through a bore well or a pump, it will go on feed, giving you water. So this Ananda which is within us, if we understand how to tap that Ananda within us, that will be an eternal source, which will replace all external sources. So somebody comes and tells, your innermost nature is Atma, and which Atma itself is a source of security, a source of love, a source of Ananda. Why can't you tap that source instead of running here and there? Instead of going to the Vedas and doing all these rituals? And the advantage of this approach is that once I have got my own personal source of water, not only I need not get anything from outside, any water from outside, I can even share this water with other people. I can start distributing it. Once you discover the love within you, it will not only, make you full, make you purna, but that love will overflow to other people around you. You don't need to go around asking everybody, do you love me? Do you love me? Instead, if you say whether you love me or not, that is your problem. But I have got infinite source of love within me, because of which I can unconditionally love you in spite of all your weaknesses, in spite of all your deficiencies, in spite of all your negative behavior. Now, I know nothing other than love. I have discovered that love within myself. That is what is freedom, liberation, moksha is all about. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, love everybody. Therefore, there is a very big switch over here, which, as I said, is the discovery of Purnatvam, Abhayatvam, Ananda, etc. within oneself. And this is what is called self-discovery. So this confused mind, which struggles to gain happiness through material desires, the mind which searches for Ananda everywhere and not finding that lasting happiness in its efforts, it gets confused more and more and more. Such a mind, such an intellect is called here Shruti Vipratipanna. The mind which is totally deluded because of hearing various Shruti Vakyas, the statements of ritualistic portion of the Vedas, which talk about various external sources. Such a confused mind, when it gets sufficiently purified through Karma Yoga, when it is turned inwards to Jnana Kanda, and instead of going to external sources, it decides to go take the inner journey towards one's own innermost core. Tap one's internal inner resources. And then what happens to the mind? Yatha samadhau stasyati. Stasyati, dwells, abides. Samadhau here means the knowledge of the Atma, the self-knowledge. In fact, the word samadhi has got different meanings in the Shastras, depending upon the context. Rather, in Yoga Shastra, samadhi means something else. Even in Vedanta, when we talk about sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, we talk about samadhi, that means different, it has a different connotation, different meaning. Here the word samadhi means Atma, Purna Atma, ever secure Atma, which is an embodiment of love. And whenever we come across this word love, what we should bring into our mind is Purnatvam. That is what we talk love, Purnatvam, fullness. The Purnatvam inside is expressed outside is love. What is love? Expression of Purnatvam. And that is why we see in our life, we experience in our life also rather. If we carefully analyze the reasons for our happiness or sorrow, we will discover that the seed for both these emotions, happiness or sorrow, lie in our desires. We have seen this earlier, but I am just bringing that, reminding you of that. What is to understand what is Purnatva. So the seeds for both happiness and sorrow, they are found in our desires. And what are these desires? Desires are nothing but symptom of a feeling of inadequacy or apurnatvam, which we try to get rid of through some actions. But we must remember, apurnatvam is not our natural state. It is a temporary state imposed by our mind. And because it is unnatural, we want to get rid of it. Our body, mind, sense complex always want to get rid of what is unnatural, what doesn't belong to it. Even if it is a speck of dust which goes into our eyes, there is a mechanism to get rid of it. Unnatural. So our body, mind, sense complex always wants to return to its natural state, and our natural state is Purnatvam. So when we have this temporary state or a feeling of inadequacy or apurnatvam, it prompts us to do actions in order to get rid of that apurnatvam. Apurnatvam manifests itself as desires, and then the desires prompts us to take action. And once we undertake certain actions to get rid of the state of inadequacy, then there are two possibilities. So the chain is feeling of inadequacy leading to desires, desires leading to take action to fulfill the desires and to get rid of this inadequacy or apurnatvam and reclaim our natural state of purnatvam. This is the what I can call the flow chart. Now, when we take action to fulfill our desires, there could be actually many different outcomes. Our desires are completely fulfilled, that is one outcome. Therefore, the sense of inadequacy goes away as far as that desire is concerned. Or the desire is partially fulfilled or not fulfilled at all, leading to lingering sense of inadequacy. Now, when the desires are completely fulfilled, there is a great sense of joy, a great sense of ananda, which manifests as love. Of course, there could be many other circumstances also, a few other circumstances, where this fullness happens and that would manifest as love. Suppose you have succeeded in something, you accomplished something, or even that your child has got a first rank or gold medal, or you are constructing a house, that house construction is complete, or you are playing a game and you have won. I mean, so many different circumstances we can talk. Or even there is a favorite team who was playing, your favorite team playing, and they won the World Cup. That also gives you happiness, right? And when we have that happiness, when we enjoy that feeling of purnatvam, which leads to this happiness, we are happy and we are prepared to forgive anybody for any mistakes that they might have done. We will become very generous. We see somebody, oh, give him some money. The heart is full. And the full heart forgives everyone. There is no anger. In fact, Swami Paramatmananda says, if you travel by auto on that day in Chennai, you will give 10 rupees extra to the auto driver even without his asking. On the other days, if he asks for more money, you may probably shout at the top of your voice. But on that day, when you are feeling very happy, you are feeling purna, you will go out of the way to share that love, share that happiness in whatever way that is possible for you. So, the feeling aham purna hai, it results in sharing, forgiving, tyaga, etc. But all these things are purnatvam generated by fulfillment of desires. And it's only temporary. It may last for a day or two. Now imagine the purnatvam, which is discovered through wisdom. Imagine that state of mind continuing permanently. And it is not an unknown state of mind. Because everybody has temporarily experienced purnatvam when love flows, when forgiveness comes, when compassion is natural. All that you need to do is extend it time-wise permanently. That is the state of mind of a person who has discovered purnatvam. And such a person, many of us were very fortunate to see in Puja Swamiji. Always compassion, always love for everybody. Whatever you do, forgiveness only will come. Therefore, there is a difference between experiencing purnatvam and discovering purnatvam. Here, Bhagavan Krishna is talking not about experiencing purnatvam, but discovering purnatvam within oneself. And therefore, he says, samadhau sthasyati. Purne abhaye adrishye anatme aniruddhe anilaye abhayam pratishtam vindate atasau bhayam gato bhavati. All Upanishad words, beautiful words. This is the state of mind which Upanishad, the Taittiriya Upanishad, talks about. And what type of discovery it is? It is Atma Jnanam. Achala Nischala Sthasyati. These two words, Achala and Nischala, have got a technical significance. Because this self-knowledge which you are talking about should be free from two obstacles. Of course, we will talk about this in detail later, but I will just mention them in this context. One obstacle is the doubt regarding my purnatvam. Shastra talks about you are purna hai, but am I a purna atma? Is this purnatvam my natural state? That is a doubt which can come in any seeker's mind. That is called samshaya. And the second obstacle is the habitual notion that I require external factors, some situations, some desires to be fulfilled to be happy. It's a very strong notion which has been with us in and through all our past janmas, including this janma. It's like a person who smokes cigarette or whatever it is for years. He cannot imagine a life without smoking. Even though he is blissfully unaware of millions of people happily surviving without smoking. So even before he started smoking, he was surviving okay only. He never missed it. But now, once having got addicted to that, he cannot imagine a life without smoking. his system demands injection of nicotine. He develops a craving, becomes addicted, then eventually becomes a slave to that addiction. There are people similarly who have different addictions, including some people cannot get out of the bed without bed coffee. That's an addiction. So therefore, we have a notion that we cannot be full and complete without certain factors, and that habitual notion does not go away so easily. Even after self-discovery, that vasana lingers, and that is called viparyaya. So, samshaya and viparyaya, these two aspects are expressed here through achala and nischala. We will deal with it in more detail in the next class. Okay, I'll stop here. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Thank you, Guruji.
Namaskaram. Thank you.
Namaskaram, Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. No hands have gone up, so I assume there are no questions, or are there?
Yeah, I have.
Sorry.
Guruji, I have a question. Anjali here.
Yes, Anjali.
As far as Adi Shankaracharya's spiritual journey is concerned, it is supposed to be Karma Yoga, then Dhyana Yoga and Moksha, or directly Dhyana Yoga and Moksha?
See, Adi Shankara and all, they are all, we can actually see them as Amsha, Avatar. We cannot compare ourselves and our journey with Adi Shankara's journey. Because if you have seen if you have read the stories of Adi Shankara and all that, and when he was just a small child, 5, 7, 8 years old, he developed a very, a strong desire to take sannyasa. He wanted to go to Kashi and study under Guru and all that. And his mother was, because his father had expired, he did not have a father, so his mother was refusing permission for him to go and take sannyasa at such an age. So then, of course, there are stories about how he staged a drama as if a crocodile has caught his feet and told his mother, if you give permission, only this crocodile will leave me and all that. We all don't know whether those stories are right or wrong. We don't need to worry about those stories. But people like Adi Shankara and all, they are all actually avatars of Bhagawad. And there are two types of avatars, as I explained in one of the previous classes, Purna Avatar and Amsha Avatar. So these are all like we talk about Ramanujacharya, Adi Shankara, or even Veda Vyasa. They are all Amsha Avatars. They are born in this world for a particular purpose. And that purpose mostly will be to re-establish dharma in this world. So when Adi Shankara appeared on the scene, the Hindu culture, the Sanatana Dharma, was under tremendous stress. People were totally confused. There were no good teachers. People did not know, they came into Grihastha Ashrama and got stuck there, and they tried to justify. They did not think about sannyasa, which is the fourth ashrama rather. All those things, there were a lot of confusion was there. So Adi Shankara came and he taught the Upanishads. He wrote the commentaries on the Upanishads to establish that, to re-establish. And today we are benefiting because of all his work. So We must not try to compare our life journey with Adi Shankara's life journey, because Adi Shankara finished his job and he went away from this at a very young age of 30. And if we look at the kind of work that he has done for 32 years, in fact, it is not even 32 years. He started his work around when 15, 16 years when he had completed his Gurukulam study under Gaudapada Acharya. When he had completed in 16 years, the amount of work that he has done, humanly impossible. We struggle to attend 2 Sanskrit classes a week. Isn't it? Just imagine how many Lalita Sahasranamam, so many, I mean, Dakshinamurti Sotram composed everything. This is usually for us unimaginable, not possible. So that is why we consider that he is an avatara, only possible for Bhagavan. So we must not compare ourselves with Adi Shankara. He did not go through this Grihastha Ashrama and all that. Even though he had actually completed all that, he did. There is a story that he did also underwent Grihastha Ashrama in his sannyasa, in the sannyasa life itself. The stories are all there. We don't need to get into all those stories and all that. So Adi Shankara, we must just treat him as a guru, as an avatara of Bhagavan, of Ishvara, who appeared in this world to guide us, and we must take guidance from him. That's all. So,
No, I'm not comparing. I'm not saying we are comparing. How can we define his spiritual journey like in the Gita terms?
can you define the spiritual journey of Krishna?
Okay.
God. They are all avatars of Bhagavan. They are born for a particular purpose. It is not karma. We are all born because of our karma. Our birth is a karma phala driven, right? But their birth, their appearance, I wouldn't even call birth, their appearance in this world is not karma phala driven. It is dharma samsthapanartha driven. To re-establish dharma, to re-establish Vedic culture, these people appear.
Okay.
So later on, we will talk about Avatara also. Bhagavan himself talks about his appearance as an Avatara. In the 4th chapter, we will see that. At that time, we will discuss this more. I will explain more what is this Avatara and how does it happen, what is the purpose of this Avatara. We will discuss that in detail. Arjuna himself asked that question to Bhagavan. What are you, like that, right? How can you... Bhagavan says, I taught Surya Bhagavan. Arjuna says, Surya Bhagavan has been there for, millions of years, but you are only born now. How can you teach Surya Bhagavan? Bhagavan Krishna explains all these things. We will see at that time in detail. Okay? The 4th chapter. Any other question? Nothing. Okay, good then. We will catch up next week. Okay? Hari Om. Thank you very much.